What would you do right now if you had $100 million in your bank account? You could do anything that you wanted. You could travel the world. You could buy 10 exotic cars. You can buy 10 exotic houses. Now you can travel anywhere, have any relationship that you want. What types of things in your life would change? What types of things in your life would you change? That's a question you should ask yourself, because this is the power of assumption. And when you're using your assumptive thinking this way, and when you're changing that state of consciousness, which what we're doing here is changing our states of consciousness, asking ourselves these questions, putting ourselves in that feeling state of being exactly what we want to be. And then what would happen? What would we be doing? What kind of relationships would you have? That's the questions you need to ask yourself to change your your state of consciousness and your concept of self, to raise that level. Keep asking yourself these questions. But what would I do if I was the person that I wanted to be right now? Would I be in this relationship? Would I be living here? Would I be doing this? And when you can answer no to those questions, raise yourself to that level and then live as if you already have those things and start making those changes internally. And then your world on the outside will start magically changing and transferring into the world, transitioning by extending your feelers into this other parallel reality where all these good things will start happening to you. You'll all of a sudden start getting job promotions, new relationships, great things coming into your life, guys. But this is what we're going to break down. We're going to break down the power of assumption. This is out of The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard, chapter 3. And I'm going to dissect this because this is getting really, really good. Man's chief delusion is his conviction that there are causes other than his own state of consciousness. That is the biggest delusion that a lot of people have, is that they are very delusional when it comes to their outside circumstances. Their circumstances of their life, they want to blame something other than themselves. And that's what keeps them in this low state of consciousness, because that is a sign in itself that you're in a low state of consciousness. When you're blaming outside causes from the outside of you instead of looking within and then making the change within you. Because if something on your outside world is happening to you, like you're not traveling the world, you're not making the money, you're not in the right relationships, and you know that's because of something within you. So change that feeling state. Start asking yourself those questions. What would I do now? What would you do after this? What would you do if you had this already? Okay, so that's what we're breaking down. All that befalls a man, all that is done by him, all that comes from him happens as a result of his state of consciousness. Raise your state of consciousness and everything starts to change. Everything that happens to you is based on your state, your present state of consciousness, your conception of self. Everything that you think, everything you desire, everything you love, everything you believe to be true, and everything you consent to be true in your life is the reason why it is the way that it is right now. Okay, so this is where Neville Goddard gets into that. A man's consciousness is all that he thinks, desires, loves, and all that he believes is true and consensus. So that's that's all connected to your current state of consciousness. Everything you think, everything you desire, everything you love, all of the things that you believe and consent to as being true is the reason why your world is the way that it is. And we're going to change all that. But you first step to this is understanding how this all works. That way you can start making the appropriate changes and stop attacking your external world like it's something outside of you that's causing this, because it's not. Okay, so, and this is where Neville Goddard points it out. That is why a change of consciousness is necessary before you can change your outer world. A change of consciousness is absolutely necessary before you can change your outer world. Rain, right here is a good example. Rain falls as a result of a change in temperature in the higher regions of the atmosphere. So in like manner, a change of circumstance happens as a result of a change in your state of consciousness. Right here in the Bible, it was telling us this in the Bible, throughout the Bible. Romans 12:2, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Your whole world will transform when you renew your mind. Change your version, your concept of self, your state of consciousness. To be transformed, the whole basis of your thoughts must change. That's why I was asking the questions when we opened with this video. That's because when you ask these questions, when you're asking yourself this question, what would I do right now if I had $100 million? Or whatever you desire in your life. Maybe it's not $100 million. Maybe it's something a little less than that, or, just living comfortably and happy is all you want. But ask yourself that question. How would I feel? I mean, what would those ideas be If I were happy right now, if everything was the way I wanted it to be in my life, how would I feel right now? And then allow those ideas to come into your mind. And that's when you start having that automatic action. You're impressing the subconscious mind with the new ideas, with new feeling states. And then you start reacting to those. And then your world will actually start transforming on the outside without having to do anything. But that's where it all begins, because your thoughts cannot change unless you have new ideas. For you think from your ideas. You think from your ideas, ideas and then thoughts, then images, and then feeling states. Okay, so the first step, or all transformation, begins with an intense, burning desire to be transformed. So think of it right now, okay? The $100 million in your bank account, do you want that? Do you have a burning desire for that? How is it just a vague desire, or is it actually a burning desire to get that? And if it is, then that is the first step. That is the main key for all transformation to begin. Okay, so the first step in renewing of the mind is desire. You must want to be different before you can begin to change yourself. You must want that $100 million. You must want it. You must want it in order to do the work to change your concept of self. Not focusing on the $100 million, but focusing on the feeling of already having it. That's what impresses into the subconscious mind. You don't think, oh, I want $1 million, because that's pushing it away from you. You don't have it right now. You're saying, I don't have it. When you're wanting something, you're saying, I don't have that right now. So don't do that. Just ask yourself that question, because that causes that change in concept. It changes the ideas in your mind, and then the thoughts start changing. And then the images start changing. The feeling states what would I do if I had $100 million right now? Oh, I'm going to go to Dubai. I'm going to travel the world, or I'm going to have this relationship, or I'm going to have several relationships, or I'm going to buy a brand new car. I'm going to get that house I always wanted. These ideas start coming in your mind, and it starts changing. It'll start changing your present your conscious state, which is your concept of self. And then it starts changing after that, okay? You must want to be different and tend to be before you can change yourself. Then you must make your future dream into a present fact. And this is what creates those new ideas in your mind, is when you can make your future dream a present fact and then impress that in the subconscious mind. And then things will start changing. Your ideas create externally. Even if you don't take action from your new ideas, those ideas create a different external reality that you're living in. They may be you taking actions automatically. That may be part of it, but a lot of it's going to be your external world changing on its own just from your new ideas, because the world is you projected outwardly. So when you change your ideas and your current concept of self, your exterior world will start changing. You'll transfer into a new parallel reality if that's the case, but your world will change. It cannot stay the same when you start coming up with these new ideas, these new feeling states. Your world cannot stay the same. You do this by assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, by desiring to be other than that what you are. Desiring, you can create an ideal of the person you want to be and assume that you are already that person. Assume that you are already that person with $100 million or whatever you desire, whatever the life that you want and desire, like a fulfilled life, a happy life. You have to assume that you already are that person, and then those ideas will come to you. They will automatically be implanted into your mind from the subconscious, and then you will react from those ideas with your thoughts and then images, and then your external world also changes with that new assumption that you're making. Because if this assumption is persistent, and also until it becomes a dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is inevitable, which is consistency. Like repetition can help with this, because if this assumption is persistent and until it becomes a dominant feeling, and even doing this periodically can really, even if it's only a couple minutes every single day or every hour or something, you're doing it like that. You're doing it, you're building it up, because, it's like riding a bike. Like when you were a kid, you first got on the bike, you couldn't ride the thing, okay? You were falling off the bike, at least I was when I was a kid. I'm falling off the bike, but sooner or later, after repetition of getting on this bike, it became like a subconscious program. Okay, I'm getting on the bike. Before I know it, I'm already at my friend's house and don't even remember how I got there. Okay, so what you're doing with repetition is you're programming the subconscious mind with this new way of thinking, these new patterns. So then your subconscious mind will like transform you into automatically thinking this way. Then you're automatically going to be assuming things automatically. You're not going to have to keep doing repetition. You're not going to have to be doing repetition for that for very long. Once you program the subconscious mind with this new idea, this new version of yourself, it becomes automatic. Just like riding that bike or driving a new car or driving a car for the first time when you first got your license. It's like that. Eventually, you get in the car. You grab a steering, you turn it on, boom. You're driving. You're at your destination before you even know it. But when you first got into it, you actually had to focus on everything. You had to keep doing it until you impress that subconscious mind with this new thing that you're doing. And that's the same way that this works when you're trying to change your concept of self and create new things into your life. Okay, so here it is. If this assumption is persistent until it becomes a dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is inevitable. That means it's going to happen. The ideal you hope to achieve is already ready for an incarnation or to materialize in your world. But unless you offer it, unless you allow it human parentage, or you're giving it consent to come into your life, it is incapable of birth. You have to give it. You have to allow this new way of thinking into your life, these new ideas. Stop blaming the outside, start changing the inside. Therefore, your attitude should be one in which having your desire to express a higher state. Okay, so you alone accept the task of incarnating this new and greater value for yourself. You must do it. You must do the work. Just like riding the bike, you actually have to get on it. At first, it's going to be difficult. You're going to fall off of it, but keep getting back up. And I promise you that you will be able to ride that bike without even trying after a short period of repetition. Okay, so in giving birth to your ideal, you must bear in mind that the methods of mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. This is very, very important right here, guys. I'm going to read that again. Okay, so in giving birth to your ideal, your new state of being, your new state of consciousness, your conception of self, you must bear in mind that the methods of mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. Mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. This is a point that is only truly understood by one person in a million, guys. And I'm going to cover this, that way you can understand it. You know a thing mentally by looking at it from the outside, by comparing it with other things. Okay, so like logically. So when you think of something mentally, you're logically comparing it. You're not being delusional. You're not living in that. You're not living in the spiritual world. You're living in a logical world that is containing you. That is limiting you. That's a limiting factor by thinking logically when it comes to this, like mentally looking at it from the outside, comparing it with other things, by analyzing it and defining it and wondering how it's going to happen. Basically, that's thinking of it. Okay, that's thinking. That's what Neville Goddard. You're thinking of it when you're thinking logical. Whereas you can know a thing spiritually only by becoming it. When you become it, then you're in the spiritual world now. Okay, so where logic is out the window. You don't need to know how it's going to come. You're thinking from it. You're actually inside of it. Then you become inside of the actual, if it's the imaginal clip, you're inside of it, because when you're thinking spiritually, there's nothing that's going to block you. There's nothing that's limiting you. You can be right inside of it and be the thing itself, instead of looking at it and analyzing it from the outside, looking at it logically, like, oh, there's no way that I can be doing this right now. And how's that going to happen? All these things, thinking of it. You have to think from it. Think from it and think spiritually. Okay, so you must be the thing itself and not merely talk about it or look at it. You must be like the moth in search of his idol, the flame, who spurred with true desire, plunging at once into the sacred fire like a moth. What moths do when there's a fire, they fly right into it. That's what he's saying. You must be the thing itself, like the moth, in search of his idol, the flame, who spurred with the true desire, plunging at once into the sacred fire, folding his wings within till he became one color and one substance with the flame. So you must be your new version of self, your new concept of self, asking these questions. What would I do right now? Who would I be right now if I already had this? If I had $100 million, what would I be doing right now? Would I still be doing this? What would I do that? Would I travel? Would I do that? That creates that new version of yourself. And like riding the bike, you keep doing that. You keep on doing that. And then before you know it, you've tricked the subconscious mind to believe that you already have that. And all these new ideas and your world starts transforming. Before you know it, you got 50 million in the bank. What that happened? Okay, so he only knew the flame who in it burnt, and only he could tell who near to tell returned. All right, so just as the moth in his desire to know the flame was willing to destroy himself, so must you in becoming a new person be willing to die to your present self. You must die to your old limited self, your old logical self, wondering how this is going to happen. I've always had these bad things happening in my life. This logical way of thinking. Start thinking spiritually that anything is possible. Anything is possible, thinking from it. Get inside of it. Believe it. Don't be logical. Don't wonder how it's going to happen, because that is only limiting you. There's nothing good about thinking logically when it comes to your manifestations and changing your version of yourself, because this illusion that we're living in is not logical at all. It is not. Quantum physics shows this, that this is an illusion. It's a hologram that we're living. It's projected from the outside. It's an observer's world, a participant world. Without us in this world, it does not exist. Consciousness does not exist on its own. It exists because we are observing it. As we're observing it, we're creating it. As we're observing it, like little projector screens. It doesn't exist without us, okay? So that's not logical, so you can think spiritually now, because spiritually is the right way to think, okay? So just as a moth in its desire to the flame was willing to destroy himself, so must you, in becoming a new person, be willing to die to yourself. You must be conscious of being healthy if you are to know what health is. This is where he gives the examples of this, okay? So like you must be conscious of something before to know what it is, to know what that is. Like wealthy, you must become conscious of being wealthy before you can know what wealth is. And that's what that does when you ask yourself these questions. You're implanting these new questions. I'm wealthy now. Okay, what would I do after that? Okay, so that's what you're doing right there. You're being conscious of being wealthy. And then you're being persistent with that, but keep asking the questions, keep visualizing, keep affirming whatever method you want to use, whatever works best for you, wealth or success. You're repeating wealth and success. If there's conflict with I am, that's okay too. Whatever it is that creates a new feeling state in these ideas, which you can feel that when you're asking the questions. This is working, okay? This is working. You can feel it as it's working. That's why my meditations are so powerful. That's what they do. And if you continue to listen to those, you will have huge changes with your concept of self, and have thousands of testimonials already with complete transformations from falling asleep to my meditations. That's why I love this so much with you guys. You must be conscious of being secure if you are to know what security is. Same method there, guys. Therefore, to incarnate a new and greater value of yourself, you must assume that you already are what you want to be, and then live by faith in this assumption, which is not yet incarnate in the body of your life, in confidence that this new value or state of consciousness will become incarnated or manifested through your absolute fidelity to the assumption that you are that which you desire to be. This is what wholeness means, what integrity means. They mean submission of the whole self to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, in certainty that new state of consciousness is the renewing of mind which transforms. There is no order in nature corresponding to this willing submission to the self, to the ideal beyond the self. Therefore, it is the height of folly to expect an incarnation of a new and greater concept of self to come about by natural evolutionary process. So you're just going to remain as you are, unless you actually start practicing this. If you start, you got to start affirming, you got to start asking questions, you got to start getting in that feeling state of being a higher level of yourself and being persistent. Keep forcing yourself in there as much as you can. Oh, I am a millionaire, or wealth and success. Whatever you want to use, ask yourself, what would I do right now if I had this? Keep putting yourself throughout the day. Sleep with it. Do it this. Be persistent. And before you know it, you're going to be programming the subconscious mind, just like riding that bike or driving that car, and it's going to be automatic. Then you're automatically going to be, your conscious self is now automatically going to be persistent in that new feeling state, because you've done it so much. You've trained the subconscious mind to believe that you already have that. So then you're automatically going to be living in that state of a higher state of being, and then your world's going to transform automatically, because you've come from here, way down here, and then you lifted yourself up here by being consistent and persistent in it. And it's like riding that bike. Now you're riding the bike without even knowing you're riding it. It's automatic. Okay, so there is no order of nature corresponding to this willing submission of self to the ideal beyond the self. Therefore, it is a height of folly to expect incarnation of a new greater concept of self to come about by natural evolutionary process. That which requires a state of consciousness is to produce its effect obviously cannot be affected without such a state of consciousness, and in your ability to assume the feeling of a greater life, to assume a new concept of yourself. We possess We possess this ability, okay? But most of nature does not possess this, but we have imagination, the instrument by which we create our world. A lot of them, you look at ants on the ground, they don't have that ability. You look at animals, they don't have that ability to imagine and wonder why, or be curious, or ask themselves questions. We have that ability, which the rest of nature does not possess, which is imagination, the instrument by which you create your world. All right, so you use it. You have this ability. Not everyone does. Okay, so your imagination is the instrument, the means whereby your redemption from slavery, sickness, and poverty is effected. If you refuse to assume the responsibility of the incarnation of a new, higher concept of yourself, then you reject the means, the only means by which your redemptive power in the universe, or whereby your redemption, that is the attainment of your ideal, can be affected. Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. However, your nature is such that it is optional to you whether you remain in your present concept of self, a hungry being longing for freedom, health. That's your current state. You're in your current state. Your nature is such that it's optional to you right now. You can remain in it. You can remain it. You can watch this video and be like, okay, yeah, he's got a good point. That probably works, but I'm not going to get out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to keep doing repetition. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to affirm. I'm not going to visualize. I'm not going to imagine. I'm not going to ask myself questions. Then you're going to remain where you are. But if you just do this a few times a day, you're going to build that momentum. And before you know it, you're going to be in a whole new level of concept, of a whole new level of reality, attracting and assuming great things in your life, and in your whole exterior world, which is an illusion. It's a hologram, is going to change. It's going to change, guys, but you can choose not to if you don't want to, or choose to become the instrument of your own redemption, imagining yourself as that which you want to be, and thereby satisfying your hunger and redeeming yourself. Oh, be strong then, and brave, pure, patient, and true. The work that is yours, let no other hand do. For the strength for all need is faithfully given from the fountain within you. The fountain within you, guys. The kingdom of heaven. All right, guys, that's the end of this chapter. But remember that this is the power of assumption, guys. This is the power of assumption. You have the power to change your life internally, because there is no external world. You're living in an internal world, a psychological world that is being projected outward. So everything in your life is as it is because of your internal belief systems, your ideas, your thinking, your feeling states, your concept of self. And when you can change your concept of self, you get new ideas. And when you get new ideas, you get new thoughts, and then new images, and new feeling states, and then a new life. But you have to start doing this, either whether it's affirming throughout the day, or whether it's scripting, or whether it's asking questions, doing 369. It's putting yourself in that feeling state throughout the day. It doesn't matter what methods. And when you go to sleep, listen to my meditations, fall asleep with that, because that's what those are doing. And that's the most receptive time with the subconscious mind, is as you're falling asleep. So check out those meditations, fall asleep with those, and do this throughout the day as much as you possibly can. And before you know it, the subconscious mind is now trained to put you into that high level of concept of self, a new level, and then your outside world will start transforming, and you'll have new ideas. Your world will have new ideas. You'll transfer to that new parallel reality if that's the case. All right, guys, I love you guys very much, and I will see you guys in the next chapter.